In the forests of the American Northwest, the grizzly bear does something every autumn that most human beings never do when money gets tight. It slows down. It notices the season changing. Food becomes harder to find. Temperatures begin to fall. Scarcity is coming. And instead of continuing to burn energy at the same rate, the bear shifts its behavior. It builds reserves. It reduces unnecessary movement. It prepares before the hardest season arrives. That is the part most people miss. Because when resources feel threatened, most humans do the opposite. Darnell knew the budget was tight this month. He still spent $140 at the grocery store. He knew the heating bill had gone up. He knew the car registration was due. He knew November was one of those months where every extra dollar already had a job. And still, he left the store with the good olive oil, the expensive cereal, the lamb chops that were not on the list, and a six-pack of craft beer he told himself he deserved. As he loaded the bags into the trunk in the cold Chicago parking lot, he did not feel guilty. He felt relieved. That relief lasted about 40 minutes. Then the receipt total hit his banking app. And suddenly the comfort disappeared. That is the pattern. Most people do not spend more money when life feels abundant. They spend more money when life feels like it is slipping. Before we go further, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. And if you are new here, subscribe so you never miss another behavioral investigation. Darnell is 37 years old. He teaches high school English in Chicago and earns $58,000 a year. He is not wealthy, but he is not irresponsible either. He has a budget written in his phone. He contributes 6% to retirement. He pays his bills. He tries to stay ahead, but every month feels tight. He rents a 2-bedroom apartment in Logan Square because moving somewhere cheaper would feel like moving backward. He drives a car that is slightly nicer than he strictly needs. He dresses well because teachers are judged before they even speak. Nothing he buys is outrageous. That is what makes the pattern difficult to see. It is not one giant purchase ruining the budget. It is 100 small decisions that all feel reasonable in the moment. Chicago makes this worse. Winter in Chicago is not just weather. It is psychological. The days get shorter. The heat comes on. People go out less. The bills go up. The city becomes colder, darker, and more expensive at the exact same time. And for somebody earning a teacher's salary in a city that constantly asks for more than that salary can comfortably provide, winter creates a specific kind of pressure. Darnell grew up on the South Side in a house where money was always carefully managed but rarely abundant. His mother worked 2 jobs for most of his childhood, not because she was careless, not because she made bad decisions, because the math simply did not work any other way. And during the tightest months, something predictable always happened. His mother cooked the best meals. When the bills were highest, Sunday dinner became more important. There would be good food, more food, something special, not because she was being irresponsible, because when life felt unstable, she created one place that still felt warm. That is what Darnell learned about money before he ever earned any. When things get tight, make things feel good. When the pressure rises, create comfort. When the world feels uncertain, spend money on something that makes the moment feel normal again. That lesson stayed with him. Years later, he still runs the same emotional program. The grocery store is where that program becomes visible. Because the grocery store does not feel like spending. It feels like taking care of yourself. It feels responsible. It feels comforting. It feels like building a good life. The store is warm when Chicago is cold. The shelves are full when the month feels empty. The expensive items do not feel reckless. They feel deserved. That is why Darnell spends more during tight months. Not because he has stopped caring. Because the pressure itself is making him reach for relief. This is the first stage of what WealthWild calls the Hibernation System. Stage 1 is the pressure signal. The budget tightens. The bills rise. The nervous system feels threatened. At that point, most people believe they are making logical decisions. But they are not. They are making emotional decisions that feel logical because they provide immediate relief. That relief becomes stage 2. Stage 2 is the comfort spend. This is where the extra groceries happen. The takeout, the unnecessary Amazon order, the new shoes during a stressful month, the expensive dinner because work has been hard. The spending is not random. It is emotional pain relief disguised as lifestyle maintenance. What makes this dangerous is that emotional spending rarely looks emotional while it is happening. It looks practical. The expensive groceries feel like better quality. The takeout feels like saving time. The new jacket feels justified because winter is coming. The dinner out feels necessary because work has been exhausting. That is why so many people miss the pattern. If Darnell had spent $5,000 in one weekend, he would have noticed immediately. He would have panicked. He would have called it irresponsible. But that is not how most financial pressure works. It works quietly. $20 here, $40 there, an extra streaming subscription, a few upgraded grocery items, another meal delivery order, another round of drinks. Nothing feels serious on its own, but together, they slowly eat the margin that could have become savings. This is why so many people feel confused when they look at their account balance. They do not remember making one terrible decision, because they did not. They made 50 small emotional decisions that all felt reasonable. And emotional decisions are dangerous because they are hardest to detect when they feel deserved. One Sunday evening in November, Darnell cooks dinner for his mother and younger sister Keisha. The lamb chops are on the table. The wine is open. The apartment is warm. For a few hours, everything feels fine. Then his mother says something that changes the entire night. She casually mentions that she has been putting a little money aside every month for the last 2 years. She says she now has enough saved to cover 6 months of rent if something ever goes wrong. Darnell goes quiet. His mother has always earned less than he does. She never had a degree. She never used budgeting apps. She never talked about investing. But somehow, she quietly built a reserve. Darnell opens his banking app in the kitchen. He looks at the balance. Then he closes it. Because for the first time, he realizes the Sunday dinner was never the real problem. The problem was that he had no system for what happened after the comfort ended. That is stage 3 of the hibernation system. The comfort spend is over. The pressure is still there. The account balance is lower. And the same problem is waiting tomorrow morning. That is when people usually promise themselves that next month will be different. And they mean it. Every single time. But next month arrives with the same habits, the same triggers, and the same emotional response. That is stage 4. The reset without a reserve. Nothing changes because no new protocol was installed. This is where most people accidentally trap themselves. They think the answer is becoming stricter. They promise themselves they will stop spending completely. No restaurants. No takeout. No small rewards. No fun. And for a week or two, it works. Then something stressful happens. A difficult day at work. A surprise expense. A fight with somebody they love. A lonely Friday night. And suddenly the old spending habits return all at once. Not because the person is weak. Because the system was built around restriction instead of replacement. Human beings do not remove emotional habits. They replace them. If somebody always spends money to feel comfort, they need another source of comfort. Something cheaper. Something slower. Something that still works. For Darnell, that eventually became cooking at home without turning every meal into an event. It became going for long walks when he felt overwhelmed. It became listening to music in the apartment instead of ordering delivery every time the week felt heavy. It became learning that comfort does not always have to cost money. That lesson changed more than the budget. It changed the way he responded to pressure. This is why the grizzly bear matters. The bear does not just respond to scarcity by consuming more. It prepares before scarcity arrives. That is the missing half of Darnell's system. He understands the pressure. He sees the season changing. But he only responds with comfort. He never responds with reserve. 3 weeks after that Sunday dinner, Darnell makes one small change. He opens a separate savings account. Not his main account. Not the account connected to his debit card. A separate account with a name that reminds him not to touch it casually. Then he sets up an automatic transfer of $40 every payday. $40 is not life-changing. That is exactly why it works. It is small enough that it does not trigger panic. Small enough that it does not feel like punishment. Small enough that he can keep doing it. The next month, Darnell goes back to the grocery store. He stands in front of the meat section looking at the lamb chops. For a moment, he feels the familiar urge. The voice that says life has been hard. The voice that says he deserves it. The voice that says next month will be easier. This time, he still buys something good. But not everything. He puts back the beer. He skips the expensive cereal. He keeps the olive oil. The total is lower. Not perfect, just lower. And later that week, when he opens the separate savings account, there is more money in it than there was before. That feeling is different from relief. Relief disappears quickly. Reserve stays. That is the lesson. The goal is not to remove every comfort from your life. The goal is to stop using comfort as the only response to pressure. Because if comfort is your only strategy, every difficult month becomes more expensive than it already was. A few months later, Darnell finally experiences something he has not felt in years. A small emergency happens, and it does not destroy him. His car battery dies one freezing morning before work. Normally, that would have meant panic. It would have meant checking his credit card balance. It would have meant moving money around. It would have meant spending the rest of the week feeling angry at himself. But this time, he opens the separate account. There is enough money in it to cover the battery. Not because he suddenly became rich, because he finally built reserve. And standing in the repair shop waiting area, Darnell notices something strange. The best part is not that he can afford the battery. The best part is that he does not feel afraid. That is what people misunderstand about savings. Savings is not just about money. It is about emotional stability. It is about removing panic from ordinary problems. Because when every inconvenience becomes a crisis, life feels exhausting. But when you have reserve, even a small reserve, life starts feeling lighter. Not easy, just lighter. And sometimes that is enough to change everything. The grizzly bear survives winter because it understands timing. It knows when to consume. It knows when to conserve. And it knows that the season always changes. The same is true financially. There are months for spending. There are months for holding back. There are months for enjoying life. And there are months for building reserves quietly before you need them. If this investigation showed you something true about your own spending habits, let us know in the comments. What do you reach for when life gets tight? What purchase makes you feel temporarily safe? And what would it look like to build reserve instead of relief? Because this is not really about money. It is about what you reach for when the pressure comes. And understanding that is where the protocol begins.